Welcome to this episode of Unraveling Adoption, an intentional space to delve into adoption's complexities together. I am Beth Syverson. I'm an adoptive mom of a bright and insightful 20-year-old son, Joey. I'm walking beside him while working on my own personal growth and healing. Joey and I are committed to helping anyone impacted by adoption, and we want to help the general public understand adoption's complexities better too. I'm also a certified coach helping seekers who want to move their lives forward. For this week's episode, we have our first guest coming from India. Let's find out what makes adoption in India unique. Dr. Asra Ali is an adoptee whose adoption was facilitated by Mother Teresa herself, one of over 5,000 children who were placed through her Missionaries of Charity. She now is a psychologist and child and family therapist and public speaker, and she primarily serves adoptive families in India. She will help us understand the cultural narratives that exist in India about adoption and how she's trying to improve lives for adopted people there. So welcome to Unraveling Adoption, Dr. Asra. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Beth. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
I should say we have had an Indian adoptee on, but he grew up here. So you're my first Indian adoptee who is in India still.
Lovely, lovely, lovely.
Well, I would love to know your adoption story. It's pretty fascinating to me over here that Mother Teresa was involved in your adoption or her organization. I'm not sure how closely she was tied, but I would love to hear from you what you know and what it was like for you as a child.
Yeah. So basically, my dad was into construction, and my parents always decided that they would like to adopt children rather than have their own. They had this social thing going on for a couple of years, and they were really lucky that they got an opportunity to help out Mother Teresa's nursery, and my dad was invited, and so did my mom go, and no familiarity happened, and it was great. It was fun. They learned a lot about my parents. And somewhere down the road, I think Mother Teresa felt that my sister and me were, these were the people that they would like to give us into. And they fell in love with us the minute they saw us. And that is how Mother Teresa actually came into picture. So she was the one who actually initiated and helped my adoptive parents adopt us. Wow. And she felt we fit in perfectly into the family.
Okay.
So my older sister, who's like 5 years older than me, she has also been given up for adoption through Mother Teresa. And exactly after 5 years, I think Mother Teresa felt they really took care of my sister. And so I think they felt it's great that I also would be a great member of the family. Yeah, so we had a great connect.
Okay, very, very good. And tell me about the culture around adoption. I hope I have that statistic right, that she facilitated over 5,000 children being adopted through her organization. Is adoption in India, like domestic adoption, what is the cultural status of it?
So the cultural status comes with the very thought of gender. So gender plays a very important role in our culture. Of course, back in those days, today it is not that bad. People would prefer having adopted a male child than a female child.
Okay.
And that is one of the cultural differences back in those days. Whereas today, we see it's pretty much equal.
Okay.
So there is a huge shift in culture. That's also one of the reasons why in India we had female feticide being one of the biggest issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And one of the main reasons a lot of people today, in today's day and age, choose to adopt is because of their lifestyle. They have certain biological issues going on, the kind of food, the mental health issues, and some actually choose for themselves to adopt. So there is this huge shift from back in those days to now. And culturally, like in the olden days, what would happen, it would be the grandparents who would take care of the kids. It would normally be a joint family venture.
Okay.
Today, and say example, there's a couple who couldn't conceive. There would be an aunt or, somebody who would actually give the child to them because they would have too many kids, hence the population.
Oh.
So that came in as an adoption, as a legal thing, because it also became an illegal concept at some point. So people would just pick up kids, deliver them and hand it over to someone. So that became a legal issue at some point.
Oh, okay. So it was pretty loose, just like, oh, well, I guess I'll take this kid.
Absolutely.
And then eventually people created paperwork and bureaucracies around it and made it more
Absolutely.
of a legal thing. And that's good in your eyes or not good?
Absolutely. Because it's very unfortunate. Children get sold
Okay.
to couples who can't conceive.
Okay. So there was a lot of trafficking.
Yes, absolutely. Human trafficking is there, especially when it comes to a gender. So the gender is a big deal in India. So that is a cultural shift.
So boys were more valued.
Absolutely.
Or are.
Absolutely. And today things have changed. Yeah.
Okay. Things are getting better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. And I know many Indian adoptees that live in America that were intercountry adopted here. But how common is adoption in India domestically? Do most kids get adopted out or do they stay in the country?
Most kids stay in the country. So as per adoption agency, they have certain rules. So the rules are, if the parents, the future adoptive parents, belong to India, they are citizens of the country, they prefer having the child being here. Because the very fact that the child may be going out, there is a trust issue that happens. So a lot of documentation work goes in. Because it is very unfortunate, but a lot of couples do adopt kids from India and they also utilize them and misuse them abroad. So we have cases of abuse, we have cases of using them like helpers, not treating them right.
Yeah, like maids.
So absolutely like maids. So many a times this is also an issue, but things have obviously evolved. Hence there is this huge rule. They do a lot of background check. They have police verification. They actually check the income of the couple. And if they are the ones who also and actually keep the child, or are they taking the child, are they standing in queue for that child and giving it away or selling the child?
Okay.
So a lot of systems have come in an order too.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of families who want kids but don't get an opportunity. So the more the filters we add in the form or online, the tougher it gets for the couples.
Right.
So if they're not going to look at ethnicity, complexion, or gender, it's easier for them to get an adopted child. It's quicker.
Oh.
But if they start having filtration, like say example, we want a kid who's probably wheatish or fair complexion wise, or they are specific about having a gender, like I want a male kid or a female kid. So when you have choices given like this, lower the chances of adoption.
Okay.
So the kids are too many, parents are less.
Okay. And complexion is a real thing. I know in a lot of Asian countries that lighter complected people are more desirable or something. Is that in India too?
Unfortunately, yeah.
I know. Yeah, it's terrible, huh? Ugh. Gosh, that's really tough. And tell me, before I get too far along, tell me about your childhood. How did you do in your adoptive family? How did you do with your sister? How was your adoption for you?
So the word adoption was introduced to me while I probably was 3.
Okay, really little.
So they would keep telling me, you're lucky and you have been adopted. We are lucky to have you. So a lot of positive strokes would keep going in.
Okay.
So the entire approach was very positive. Okay. Of course, we didn't know as kids what it meant, but as we grew, we could connect. That was one. Another factor was the appearance, the physical appearance. We started realizing that we don't look like them.
Okay.
So that's when questions come in, right? And why are we not so tall? See, for a child, it is always the physical, the look, basically. How do you look? How do you connect? Genetic coding.
Sure.
Why don't I look like my mom? Or why don't I look like my dad? Right? Which is very typical and very normal in any adoptive child for that matter. So we were introduced very positively, and my dad also being a psychologist himself, who's also into human behavior, and my mom, who's also done her master's in psychology, both of them knew how to handle it.
Okay.
And every time we had queries, they would not run away from those questions.
Oh, that's good.
They would answer it to us, and we would also go for these tiny camps that we had for adoptive children.
Okay.
So there used to be these social gatherings. Yeah, that still happens. Something that we have in our country is something called the adoption plays. So there is open awareness towards it. Of course, we do know that we have counseling, but we have special counseling cases also.
Okay.
We handle children who need to be, like your very channel says, unrevealing. How do you unreveal to a child? So we guide them, So there are a lot of programs that have come in.
And that's what you do now, right?
Absolutely.
That's your job. You work right with adoptive families and kids.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. It sounds like your parents were pretty aware and self-aware and helpful. What do you see adoptive parents today in your practice? What are the mistakes that they're making? What are they goofing up?
So I think a lot of parents are a little insecure because they haven't been told how they have to tell and talk to the child. So they go wrong there. And it's a lot of hush-hush even till date.
Okay.
They do not want to tell their in-laws, or they don't want to tell their neighbors. And in fact, they're scared.
Oh, they try and keep it secret. Oh.
Absolutely. They try and keep a secret with the child.
Oh, wow. That never works out well.
So they do not reveal it to the child.
Oh.
And the other is they try to keep shifting schools if they get to know.
Oh, so if someone finds out, they just yank the kid out. Oh,
yeah,
geez.
Absolutely.
Oof, that's tough.
And instead of addressing the issue, they try to run away from the issue.
Yeah.
And they think it is best that the child doesn't know, because I'll tell you one thing. It's a deep-rooted fear of every adoptive parent that the parent will get rejected.
Yeah.
So this is universal. This has got nothing to do with Indian thing, but it's universal.
Sure. No. Yeah. And the whole, where's my real parent? The adoptive parent's like, I am your real parent. What about me? And yeah, that insecurity and God, that is so tough for adoptive parents. Ideally, they would work on it before they even adopted, but no one does that. And so they come to your office and they're like, what do we do? Our kids acting out, or our kids having trouble, and we don't want to tell them. And how do you walk adoptive parents through that?
So unfortunately, a lot of parents come when it is almost too late.
Yeah.
Somebody has either told the child or added that in the child's mind that you look different from your parents. So the child also wouldn't have realized. And when they start showing certain symptoms in school, like probably the child is showing a symptom which is a classic symptom of learning disability that we see, or emotional disturbances, or any behavioral problems. That is exactly when parents wake up and say, hey, something is wrong. They forget that it could be because somebody has hurt the child by probably telling something very tiny like, why aren't you as tall as your mom? Or why aren't you as fair as your dad? Or you guys don't look like a family. Are you really a family? So when these questions are thrown and issues come, they're visible. That is when they come. Whereas, bang on, I have a set of parents who call me up and say, we are planning to adopt a child.
Oh.
Can you kindly guide us? Yes, we have both sets.
Oh, that's nice.
Can you kindly guide us on how do we go about, what is the process? So I tell them, more the filtration, lesser the chances.
Okay.
It's a very simple technique. More the filtration, lesser the chances.
Explain that some more.
Of getting the child adopted. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we say, like I mentioned earlier, more the filters, like the gender, complexion, personality that you're looking for.
Yeah, more filters. Okay.
More the filters, lesser the chances of you. It's like a queue. You're right in the front, right? You're at probably fourth one, standing in the queue as a parent, virtual queue, and you're waiting for your number. So there are three couples who are waiting. You're the fourth one. So the first one said it doesn't matter to us. Whatever we get, we will take it with open arms. The second one says, I want a girl only. So there, from the second, they go to the eighth. So this is a cycle. And suppose the fourth one says, no, I want a boy who's extremely fair or extremely tall. We want to see the genetic coding. We want to see the medical issues. We want to see if there's any disability. They go right at the back. So more the filters, lesser the opportunities.
Yeah, so that slow it down.
Absolutely.
Now, it hurts to hear those kind of desires. It's kind of like placing an order, right? It feels like, well, this is what I want. And when you give birth, you don't get to pick any of that. You just get whatever happens. And I feel like adoptive parents, they're kind of like shopping. Well, it is kind of like shopping. And it's a little distasteful, don't you think, that people are like, well, I want this perfect child exactly the way I wanted. And then the child, maybe it will come just like they asked for, but maybe their child will have a learning disability, or maybe they'll be gay, or maybe they'll be whatever. And sheesh, I don't know if those types of parents that put in a big wish list are going to be the kind that are going to be open to whatever arrives along the way. I mean, what is your view about that as an adoptee?
It does happen. That it does happen. It's the reality. Many of them, say, example, if we have, like you rightly pointed out with regard to a child being gay, immediately, because the parent is not ready to accept, he or she will say, oh, it is because you're adopted. They will never understand.
Oh, they blame it on the adoption.
They blame everything on adoption. And this is not a generic thing, but it is somewhere out there, right? So there is this wonderful thing that I would like to share with you. There was a couple who had two biological girls and chose to adopt another child. So there were some, tiny misunderstandings between children as they were growing up. So the kid turned around and tried to complain to the mom. And at some point, the child learned that he or she needs to fight her own battles. So she turned around and she said, hey, you know what? I'm so happy I'm adopted. At least I was chosen, but they did not have a choice with you. You came the way you are. So you can empower yourself too, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh my gosh.
It's a very different thought.
For sure. That's a good way to turn it on its head. Wow. And now that you're an adult and you're working with families and seeing kind of the effects of adoption every day in your practice, when you think about Mother Teresa now, what feelings do you have toward what she did for you and for so many others?
So to be very honest, I think it's a very mixed feeling. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel, oh wow, it's a great social cause. But as an adopted child, sometimes I have often wondered, not that I'm not happy or something, but I feel if that wouldn't happen, probably I would be with my biological. So I feel like you have been taken away. So it's not a very positive feeling.
Do you know what happened with your biological parents?
No, I don't. There's a lot of question mark, yeah.
In India, is it hard to find?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You cannot get your records.
Okay. There's no records. It's very closed. So you don't even know if you truly were an orphan or if your parents are still alive. You have no idea.
Absolutely. We don't know.
Oh, so much. So you just wonder, gosh. And I wonder if an organization would have come around your birth family and given them the resources they need, if you would have been able to stay. I mean, who knows at this point, but
in fact, I would ask my parents. It used to be a very open conversation. Again, like I mentioned, they were open. So probably while I was growing up, I did tell them that why don't we go back to the orphanage and find my birth mom? Uh-huh. I was somehow not fascinated with the father. I don't know why.
I hear that a lot.
But it's the mother that connects.
Yes.
We don't care about the father. It's always the mother.
Oh, whatever.
So I don't know why it happens, but it happens. And it's a very natural thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So I said, I want to go and see if my birth mom is alive. I want to go and see if I have siblings. And for some reason, I am very stuck up with a twin. And I don't know why.
Oh, a twin.
And I did read about this. I did a little research. So it says there is a small percentage of adoptive children while they're growing up. They always feel that there is a twin and we have been separated. Wow. Yeah, it's a huge research they have done.
Oh, really?
You must read about it. It's great.
I've heard that people feel like there's another one of them. I guess that's like having a twin. Like there's another person living a parallel life to you. Absolutely. With your birth family. And you're just wondering.
And it's very funny because whenever my parents wouldn't allow me to step out of country, I used to say, maybe I'll find my twin there. It's just...
Oh, gosh.
Maybe that's the reason they're not allowing me.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, my goodness. The other Indian adoptee that I interviewed, Sanjay Pulver, he has a twin, but he doesn't have any idea where they are. Doesn't know the gender, doesn't know anything.
Is there a feeling of the other person too? Does the kid feel like there's another one?
I think so. But he really did have a twin. But yeah, I think that there's this longing, this just deep disconnection. And it's heartbreaking. Well, what can we let's start with adoptive parents, because I am one and you are so intelligent in working with parents all the time. And from your adoptee perspective as a professional, what is one thing that adoptive parents can just do better? Let's just assume that we tell our kids that they're adopted. Let's just assume that they know. But after that, tell us one thing that we can do better.
I think honesty with what they feel and acknowledging the adoptive child's feelings. That is something they run away from. So they do not acknowledge. And this is a common trait I have observed. So one of the reasons adoptive children also come for counseling is because the child tells me, ma'am, my parents do not understand what I'm trying to tell. So there is an emotional disconnect.
Yeah.
And you can't blame the child. So when we talk about trust and mistrust as a psychological term, they need to understand that you have a family where your roots are, you know where you belong. But when your child does not know, he or she needs a root to hold on to. And you're not giving them that.
Okay.
So being honest and helping them find themselves is very important.
Yes.
Being there emotionally and being there, especially when they're vulnerable, is the crux of the book. They do have a lot of breakdowns. A lot of kids who come, they have a lot of breakdowns. But what are we doing about it? Counseling is just one tiny little percentage of whatever. But when you have taken up a huge responsibility as a parent, very, very important to address the emotional vacuum, because that can never fill, right?
Yes.
It's a vacuum. It's exactly, if you ask me, I would describe it as a hollow womb. There was a fetus which has gone away. What happens to the womb?
Yes.
So, a lot of adopted children are stuck at the womb level. That is why we say we need to work towards the inner child healing.
Yes.
That's exactly why we tell that. So, the healing has not happened from there. So, it's very important for the parents to learn this.
Yeah, so much to learn and to be aware of. And I bet a lot of adoptive parents, they don't think that far ahead. They're just like, well, I just want a child. And, I want someone to take care of me when I'm older or whatever. You just want to fill up your family and you just want that cute little baby.
I know.
But it's so deep and it's so painful for the adopted person to live not knowing and just feeling that deep hole. So adoptive parents, step up. Step up and do our best. I think for me,
Absolutely.
it's helped me tremendously to do my own work on my own inner wounds that aren't related to adoption, but my own stuff. So it doesn't come out while I'm dealing with my own kid. It's so important. Well, everybody has work to do. Oh my goodness. Thank you for the work you're doing for families there in India.
Welcome.
Yeah. Is there any way that we can be supportive of your work?
Absolutely. If there's anything, see, they can, at this point, anybody who requires emotional support, please feel free to share my number, my email with them. They can get in touch. We could have a couple of sessions. Reason being, feelings remain the same universally.
Yeah, for sure. Are you able to work worldwide or are you only able to work in India?
Absolutely. No.
Worldwide?
I'm able to work. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So, very good.
I, in fact, recently helped a couple work towards adoption about, I think, 3 months ago. They are in the US right now. They're Indians, but they didn't know how to go about. And they looked into my Instagram page on adoption and they got in touch with me. So they said, how do we adopt? How do we go about? And so I think they're in the right path. So
that's great. So you help them get on the right path right from the beginning or before the beginning, before they even adopt, help them understand what is important to know.
I start working on the parents the minute they tell me we want to adopt. I start from there.
What's the first thing you tell them?
I say, lovely. May I know why? And there are hundreds of reasons they share. And many a times the couple is very confused. How can someone ask me, why do you want to adopt? Because that's an internal question I ask them.
Oh, that probably throws some of them. And then they know that they have some more work to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not an easy, let's just adopt. Woo! It's deep. It's a lot of inner work for everyone involved. Well, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Is it through the Instagram or do you have a website?
They can connect with me via Instagram.
Okay.
My email ID and my contact number as well.
Okay. All right. And why don't you just say your Instagram handle and then I'll put the rest in the show notes.
So it's Dr.Asra Ali 25.
25. Okay. That's your Instagram handle. All right.
Yeah. The Dr. D is the small letter. It's not capital.
A small DR.
.ASRAALI 25. That's right.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you, Dr. Asra. It's been very nice to get to know you. I continue to marvel at technology that allows me to talk to people around the world.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be a part of your interview. It's a blessing, in fact.
It's amazing. Yeah, well, I'm glad to know you, and you're doing great work there in India and
Thank
around
you.
the world. And I hope people look you up. And I'm glad to have you walking with me on this journey of better understanding
Absolutely.
and being better for our adopted kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So, listeners, I hope you found this episode to be enlightening and informative about adoption in India and the way we can best support our adoptees all around the world. And after you go look up Dr. Asra's information on Instagram, please find Unraveling Adoption online at unravelingadoption.com. I want to highlight our upcoming big in-person event in Southern California on February 8th, 2025. It's called Adoption Healing Quest, and we created it for anyone impacted by adoption, adoptees, birth or first parents, adoptive parents, and compassionate allies. You're all warmly invited to attend. It's going to be involving 10 practitioners and a film screening in the evening. And we hope that if you're anywhere near Southern California, you will join us. Information is below in the show notes or at unravelingadoption.com/events. Thank you for listening, Dr. Asra, and I want you all to stay
Stay safe.